tyranny of low expectations that we might have on the 2-year-old, the 12-year-old, and what they can actually handle might be the exact same tyranny of low expectations towards the capacity of people around us to rise to any occasion. Oh, Danny boy, oh, Danny boy, oh, Danny boy, I get knocked down, Chumbawamba. Every time I sit in this seat, Chumbawamba comes to mind. And I don't even know why. Because honestly, the comments are so positive. The reception of this project, so positive. So I don't know why I think about a song about getting knocked down. But preparation for life, I guess. And today's reflection is on this concept called the tyranny of low expectations. This is a concept that's often said in relation to parenthood, where you don't think your child can do something, so you do it for them continually, over and over and over again. And you create an infantilized child that just believes that they can't do these things, that a 2 or a 4 or 14-year-old can absolutely do. But they suffer in an environment that has a tyranny of low expectations for them. Where is this relevant to us? If you don't have kids, you're hearing this concept for the first time and you do have kids, it's certainly relevant in that area code of life. But where else is it relevant? It's quite relevant with those around us. Everyone. Our entire community. Our friends. Our family. The story that comes to mind is, I remember I was feeling this call to not eat meat any longer. And I had been a vegetarian for 5-6 months before, but years later, I was coming back to it, feeling this call to not eat meat, and felt like, and I don't know why I felt like this, because I had already tried it out, and my wife was so accommodating and really supportive. But I thought to myself, because maybe it was because I wasn't just going to try it out. It's like, yeah, I'm done eating meat, or I want to be done eating meat. This is not a requirement. If you can eat meat and it does not agitate you, as is the case with this philosophy of Advaita Vedanta, within Advaita Vedanta, if something does not agitate you, it's not a sin. Sin is that which agitates. If you could cut into someone with a knife, it doesn't agitate you. You might be a surgeon. Therefore, it's not a sin. The act has nothing to do with whether it's a sin or not. You protecting your family, and you do what might be necessary in that moment. You get violent with someone, doesn't agitate you. If anything, them coming to try to attack your family, that agitates you into protecting them. That isn't a sin. And there's countless examples that are always given where we think, this, violence, or, cutting into someone, or drinking alcohol. If it doesn't agitate you, it's not a sin. There are no shoulds and should nots within this philosophy. It's one of the major anchors that separates it from a religion is there's no dogmatic in-group, out-group. If you don't believe these things, then you're out the group. It's much more like observations. And they either resonate with you or they don't. They're either relevant to your daily life or they're not. Just observations on, as this philosophy is often called, a manual for living. It's observations on how to live well. And one of the observations is that we benefit most by questioning everything. And something to really question, whether you're a parent or whether it's your community, is what others can handle. I thought my wife couldn't handle me telling her, I no longer want to eat meat. The background on that is just, I love animals. Animals are, as that old phrase goes, animals are my friends. I don't want to eat my friends. And it started to bother me just knowing. It all started with a drive down on the way down from San Francisco down to LA, seeing the insanity of one of the cattle farms on the way down. Just all dirt, no grass, as far as the eye could see, smelled awful. And these cows just squished in these tiny pens that you could see right off of the highway. And I was like, damn, okay, I'm getting a little too aware of the pain this causes. That's me. That is not you. And like I said, there are no shoulds and no should nots. So it's completely up to you, whether it agitates you or not. For me, it started to agitate me to the point where I was like, to satisfy my taste buds, this ain't worth it. I can get satisfaction in other ways that don't cause this kind of pain and suffering. And I thought that for months, but didn't say anything to my wife because I just didn't want to bother the universe by adding that into a household condition. And then about 5-6 months later, told her she was completely on board. Maybe she had some questions about it or hesitations, but it was nothing. It was within minutes. She was like, okay, let's do it. I'll do it too. A crazy lack of resistance. Something that I thought there'd be a whole lot of resistance towards. When I launched Yoga for Your Intellect, the podcast with my teacher, that I launched that before the Daily Vedantic, and kind of was like, kicked the doors down and said, all right, I'm a yogi now. And this is a topic that, I might be a jabroni yogi. I might still go surf with the boys, might go on the fun guys trip and have a blast, but still, even on that trip, wake up before the sun comes up, study, reflect on a timeless wisdom like Vedanta each morning. But in my head, there was no going back once I made this podcast, Yoga for Your Intellect, public. And I remember thinking, like, there might be some resistance. There might be some resistance from my parents. And they didn't necessarily get it. That was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. They still don't fully get the philosophy, but there is a growing appreciation for it. And there hasn't been any aspect of identifying with this philosophy in a public way that hasn't felt natural. There's been some resistance, like I said, some, but not nearly as much as I thought. Especially growing up in a Catholic household in a very waspy neighborhood in Dallas, Texas. Friends of mine, never comes up. If there is or was a friend or a community member that doesn't want me to be myself and wants me to like live in a prison of a version of me in their mind that they want to keep me in, then to hell with them anyhow. But you don't necessarily think that about your parents. It's harder to think about that about loved ones or family members. And again, I'll say it's not fully understood, but I am continually surprised by the sea of acceptance around a version of me that for years I was just kind of hesitant to tell people about. But as Christ says, what I tell you in the dark, speak in the daylight. What is said in whispered tones, proclaim from the rooftops. As someone fighting for truth or wired to fight for truth, I couldn't just keep this to myself. It's just like, all right, this agitation of keeping it to myself or thinking people can't handle it is now greater than any agitation of resistance or potential loss of love. And then I was so surprised, just like the conversation about not eating meat with my wife. It's like crickets. It's nothing. No real pushback. Certainly nothing to lose sleep over. And yet in my mind, I thought I lost sleep over many nights. I lost sleep over. I wonder how this is going to be perceived. Well, I didn't literally lose sleep over it. Relatively great sleeper, but I did wonder how it was going to be received. The tyranny of low expectations. Today's reflection is on the tyranny of low expectations that we might have on the 2-year-old, the 12-year-old, and what they can actually handle might be the exact same tyranny of low expectations towards the capacity of people around us to rise to any occasion. Not only perhaps inconsistent, new, maybe challenging version of you that may, in some ways, you get resistance when you start to proclaim your truth in some philosophical way from people that don't follow that path, because in some sense they take it as you invalidating their path. And that can be a challenge for them. But it's, getting into 55-degree water for a minute in a cold plunge. It's a challenge. But they can handle it. And it might be, to be honest, one of the healthiest challenges for them to have, even if there is a knee-jerk reaction when they first hear it. Years later, could be one of the best things that ever happens to them, to have something introduced in their life from a seat, a source of truth within you that you hesitated to introduce. The tyranny of low expectations for those around us goes well beyond your relationship with them as well. You see a friend going through something awful. You wonder if you could handle it. You wonder if they can handle it. Maybe it's tyranny of low expectations. Someone gets news that you think is going to crush them, and it makes them more resilient than ever. News that, like in the gym, you would have gone and taken the weight off the bar for them and be like, no, let me get that discomfort away from, and you can't because it's news of a loved one dying, a cancer diagnosis, loss of a job, and you can't go remove that weight. They're in the gym and they've got that weight on the bar. And they can handle it. In fact, that resistance, that challenge, that weight is what is going to make them so much stronger for themselves, their family, their community, for decades to come. And our knee-jerk reaction is to think, no, they can't handle it. Let me go remove, if I could, I would go remove that weight for them. But who the hell would walk into a gym, friend or stranger, and be like, let me take that weight away from you? So many challenges in life, they are like the weight, the bars in the gym. That person is going to become such a stronger version of themselves, even if they themselves do not see it, because of that challenge. Like the tyranny of low expectations with children, it's a real tyranny to think, no, I need to remove that from them. They shouldn't have to go through that. That's too much of a challenge. Maybe everyone around us has a capacity within them that is near infinite to rise to any occasion, and they themselves, their communities at large, benefit from us never removing the weight. And if anything, removing our tyranny of low expectations of what they can handle. Because as this philosophy says, they've got divinity within them. They have infinite capacity within them. So who are we to say they don't? That they can't handle a truth or they can't handle a challenge. That's the tyranny of low expectations, and perhaps it's keeping them and yourself at a much lower rung of a ladder of evolution, of development than is needed. Maybe you, them, all of us, are capable of climbing much higher than we think. That's today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.